So our client is A Plus Airline Company. This is the third largest airline in the United States by passengers carried.
Mhm.
This week, we have been flying on our primary competitor, Gamma Airline, and we noticed something interesting. They stopped accepting cash for in-flight food and beverage services, and now they accept only major credit cards.
Mhm.
The CEO of A Plus Airline Company wants to know, why did Gamma Airline switch from a cash and card system to a credit card only system, and should we follow them?
All right. I think this is a very interesting case. I find really often, so happy to solve it. Just to make sure that we're on the same page here, I'm gonna recap the prompt to make sure that I capture everything in the project correctly. Our client is A Plus Airline, and they are the third largest airline in the US by the numbers of passenger. One of our competitor, Gamma Airline, recently switched the purchasing means in the plane from cash to credit card, only for a major credit card. And our clients, A Plus, would love to know if we should follow them, and then also the reason behind Gamma initiative.
That's right.
Awesome. Cool. To see if there's some question that I would love to ask you. Number one, I would love to learn a bit more about the in-flight services of our client A Plus and also Gamma. Is there any similarity, food, different services, Wi-Fi, etc.?
Absolutely. Great question. And indeed, they're very similar airlines. Both are domestic airlines, both offer in-flight food and beverage services, essentially, which is,
Mhm.
snacks, things like that, that you're looking to purchase. Very similar in offering.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Would there be any differences, say, different classes within the plane, right? First class, business class, economics, and is there any like differences in the purchase
Hmm.
power of the class? For example, I know that first class does not have to purchase anything on a flight, for
Hmm.
example.
Exactly. It's precisely that. So there's
Hmm.
first class, there's economy as well. Indeed, first class, typically you wouldn't be paying,
Hmm.
but there's an economy class, and usually they're the ones paying.
Cool. Awesome. Good to know. And then lastly, a broader question. I would love to know about kind of the objective of the CEO. Do they just want to
Mhm.
stay competitive by switching to this new method, or would they want to lower cost, increase revenue for in-flight services?
It's a good question. We don't have any specific business goals and objectives in mind. I think the goal here
Hmm.
is we're just curious as to why would Gamma Airline go from a cash and card system to a credit card only system. So what's the motivation behind that move? That's why you're
Okay.
here, and see if we should be replicating that.
Awesome. That's all I need. I think I understand it pretty well. Do you mind if I take like a few moments to brain orient my thought?
No problem. Please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I think I'm ready.
All right.
Um, Kind of my big umbrella hypothesis for this case is that our client, our competitor, Gamma Airline, is doing this because they're either a more efficiency in cost, right? It's decreased the cost of processing that purchases in-flight service for their business. And number two is they experiencing maybe a higher volume of purchase, meaning increase in revenue that nudged them into doing this. I would love to approach this case kind of build on top of the hypothesis to see if this is true. If yes, if we switch to a credit card only purchase payment, would be able to also leverage from that benefits.
Okay.
So there's four things I would love to look at in this case. I also order them in sequential order. Number one is the passenger or the audience that we're talking about for our airline compared to our competitor. Number two is kind of the change in revenue that we would experience. Number three is the cost saving aspect of it. And number three is also some idea if we were to incorporate this solution or credit card payment, how can we make it so good that we can attract more customer? So for the first category, passenger, I would love to understand a bit more about our passenger segmentation, right? Is our passenger somebody who familiar with credit card? Do they have a credit cards? I think it's really easy for us to understand this by kind of surveying our passenger segmentation, or maybe think like, do they purchase their tickets with credit card or like, I don't know, a debit card or cash at the airport? Also understand our value proposition within the industry compared to Gamma Airline. Are we the Southwest in the industry or are we the Emirates, the Delta airline in the industry? And then third, kind of understand also, are we mainly do domestic travel? I know you mentioned in the US, but I know some US domestic airline also have international travel. Do we want to look at both customer segmentation or just one and not another? Category number two, I want to look at the revenue change if we were to incorporate credit card payment on in-flight service. I kind of built out like the way that I can measure that. So we look at the plane capacity,
Mhm.
and then maybe calculate how much passenger there are on the plane with the percentage fill on average of a flight. Within that passenger, how many of them would actually purchase in-flight services, and how much of them would use cash or card. And then from there, we would understand if we were to switch to a credit card, how much would we lose or increase in
Mm.
the revenue. For costs, I think numbers of costs here, maybe we can decrease the cost in terms of the process. It will be faster for them to pay the service through credit card because we have less flight attendants. So maybe cut costs in labor, cut costs in the processing time, and also the cash handling process after the flight is completed. And lastly, last category, I would love to also explore some non-monetary value we can get. Number one is there a risk of a lawsuit? Because credit card handling can be very problematic. So compliance, right? Also customer satisfaction, would they be satisfied? Do we have any like bad feedback if we switch to credit card? And also the time that we need to process a purchase. So I think that's a lot of things we need to cover, but let's start with the audience, if that sounds great to you.
That sounds good. What specifically would be helpful to know about the audience or the passengers in this case?
I would like to gauge the differences in the audience types that we have and then our competitor Gamma have, right? Um, Number one, is our customer passenger familiar with credit card?
Mhm.
And is there any quantifiable number for that?
Right. So unfortunately, Gamma Airline is a private airline, so we don't know
Hmm.
too much information on them in terms of financials, at least, and how much of their revenue is coming
Yeah.
from in-flight purchases, so to speak, versus ticket sales.
Hmm.
Um, However, your second question in terms of do our customers use credit card? Absolutely. I think
Hmm.
tickets are bought with credit cards, and they're not purchased at
Okay.
the airports frequently. However, this case is strictly about in-flight food and beverage purchases only, right? Where we're
Hmm.
limited to in scope.
Awesome. Cool. Um, so I think I'm pretty clear on the passenger right
Hmm.
now. Would it be possible for us to gauge kind of where we stand in the industry in terms of reputation? Are we like a cheap airline provider
Mm,
or like a
right.
premium experience?
It's a good question. You can think of us as a Southwest, as you were alluding
Okay,
to.
awesome. Cool. So I assume a lot of our seat on the plane is gonna be economy. seats,
Exactly.
like Southwest.
Exactly.
So would love to next understand what would be the changes in revenue if hypothetically we going to use credit card for in-flight services.
Perfect. Let me share my screen and project. Here we go. Awesome. Can you see my screen, Bao?
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. Here is a typical A plus airline flight. I think
Mhm.
this should be helpful in giving you a sense for what is involved overall in terms of a typical flight. And I think it answers some of the questions you've asked in terms of
Mhm.
people that are flying in economy versus first class, people that are using cash versus card. So what I'd love for you to do is to think about using this information. Can we come up with what a typical revenue look like essentially for a typical flight?
Awesome. Cool. Let me take a few seconds here to read the chart.
Okay.
Can you, yeah, yeah, cool. So what I see here is basically a breakdown from a average flight that our client offer, A plus airline, into two main class, first class and economy. And then also some data on percentage of passenger who purchase an in-flight service and also how much they spend each purchase. I think from here we can calculate what would be the revenue or of an air flight, of an flight in terms of in-flight services that is purchased by cash or card with the figure
Perfect.
down below.
That sounds good.
So I saw a footnote here that first class passenger receive free food and beverages. So I would assume that I can exclude them from the calculation because
Perfect.
they're not taken into
Exactly.
account.
Exactly.
Cool. So I would love to structure my calculation here to make sure that I am correct. My first step is going to calculate the numbers of passenger for economy passenger on a flight. Um, Step number two, I am going to kind of split them into business and leisure travel to calculate um, the numbers of passenger who purchase in-flight services. Step number three, I'm going to calculate the spending by multiplying the numbers of people who purchase with their average spend.
Hmm.
And then lastly is calculating the split between cash and card payment type.
Okay.
Cool. All right, let's do step number one, numbers of passenger. I saw that there is 200 total seats on a flight, and then 75% of them are economy class. So that's going to be 150 seats, economy seats on a flight. Only 80% of them is loaded. So I'm going to take 80% of 100 and 50, which is going to be on average a flight going to have 120 economy passengers. All right, let's do the split between business and leisure. So we have 50% for each, which means we have 60 on average economy business traveler and then 60 for leisure traveler in economy class. All right, I'm going to calculate the spending for each of the traveler types, business and leisure. So for business, 75% of them purchase a online in-flight service. So that's going to be 45 people purchasing, multiplied by their average spending, which is $10 per purchase. So we got the total revenue for business traveler is going to be $450. For leisure is the remaining 25% of the 60 leisure traveler purchase
Hmm.
an in-flight services. So that's going to be 15 of them multiplied by $5. We are going to get $275. Cool.
270.
So
Sorry, where do we get 275 from, Bo?
No, 75
Oh,
for leisure.
75. Sorry, I
Yeah,
misheard. Sounds
no
good.
worries. So in total, the in-flight revenue here is going to be two, one, $525 per flight. I'm gonna now calculate what is the amount that is paid by cash and then pay by card. So for cash, we have 20% of that, which means 10% is 52.5 by 2. So that's gonna be $105.
Okay.
And for card, which is just gonna be the remaining, which is $420 in total. Cool. So we have the split here. It seems like there's more purchases that is done by card and it's also you higher revenue. What I would love to do next, if we were to switch to credit card, I would love to understand how would that impact our cash paying traveler or customer. Would they still purchase or would they just quit purchasing because they don't have a credit card?
Awesome. That's great. So let's say, Bao, we did a quick survey to figure out
Okay.
what would happen to those cash customers. It looks like we would lose one third of them in terms
Okay.
of purchasing anything. So one third of them only carry cash.
Mhm. So I think with that information, number one, I can calculate how many remaining revenue from cash we can keep. And number two, if there's more information on why do they quit purchasing, is that because they don't have a credit card or is that just like too much work for them? I can also brainstorm some of the way that we can maybe increase the
Okay,
retention percentage.
sounds
So
good.
let's do number one first. So one third of them you said would quit. So I'm gonna take 105 divided by 3. So we going to keep $35.
Well, we're going to lose the one third. So we're
Oh,
going
you're
to
gonna lose
lose
one third.
35. Exactly.
Gotcha. My bad. My apology. So we're gonna lose 35, which means that we're gonna keep 75.
Or 70. Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. How do you feel about that? Losing $35?
So I think I would, so this is a loss for sure, but tying it back to my initial framework, right? I also list out there's a cost component.
Hmm.
Maybe credit card would decrease our cost somehow. For example,
Hmm.
processing fee, the labor that we can have, the flight attendants that we have in
Hmm.
flight, um, or maybe the cash handling process.
Hmm.
I think that's a big thing too because they have to take the cash and then deposit into the bank somehow. Um,
Very
so
good.
maybe if the cost can offset the decrease in revenue, then I think we should go for this initiative.
Okay, perfect. No, you hit the nail on the head, pal. Let's take a look at the differences between a credit card and a cash operation when it comes to these airlines.
Mhm.
Realize it's very small font. Happy
Yeah.
to blow it up slightly for you. Here we go.
Can you actually zoom out just a little bit to see?
Absolutely.
And then scroll up a bit. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so let me take a moment here to read
Hmm.
briefly through the information. Cool. So I think the three biggest insights that I got from this diagrams, number one is the cash versus the credit card process. The cash process have a lot of steps that we need to
Hmm.
manage. Um, Insight number two is that the processing, the total time, 31 days versus the 24 hours total time. I think that's a very big difference, right? Decreased by 30 days is a lot. And even if this is like business day versus like calendar dates, and it's even more weeks that we need to take into account. So I think what tell me here is that if we do credit card, the what is the term for it? time values of money that we receive immediately would be higher than waiting another 31 days to get it deposited into our bank. So we have more cash circulate in our business with the credit card option.
Good.
And lastly, insight number three is that I saw there's five cash handler per airport and there's two employees. So if we switch to credit card, there's a lot of potential for us to cut the labor as well, to save money. So with that, we are cutting the time to process, we are cutting the labor cost, and also we are cutting the step that we need to oversight.
Awesome. Makes sense.
Mhm. So if there's a way for us to kind of calculate the decrease in costs given the information, then it would be great for us to compare if the decrease in cash revenue would be worth it.
Hmm. Perfect. Let's say our team crunched the numbers, well,
Mhm.
and we learned that these savings that you mentioned, especially related to time value of money, the interest that we can, just deposit in our bank account, so to speak, for 30 days, to the 7 people per airport. Let's say all of that amounts to $35 per flight.
Mhm. Cool. So we cut exactly what we lose in our kind of decrease in revenue of cash payment. Because of this, I'm still want to take another step deeper to see if it's worth switching, right? I would love to maybe consider what are some non-monetary benefits or risk that we should consider for this initiative, right? So for the risk side, I'm happy to brainstorm it for you, but on
Please.
top of my head, yeah. All right, let's do the risk first. So I gotta think of this question at two side, right? So the monetary risk and also the non-monetary risk. For the non-monetary, there's a lot of risk in the increase in kind of the cost of our service, right? There's a processing fee that we need to pay for the bank if we were to have a customer tap their card. Number two is the risk of having to build out a facility for us to receive credit card, like the Apple Pay tap payment or some sort of machine for us to process the card. Number three is fraud, right? I heard a lot of rumors that some airline they do in-seat purchase. So if a passenger is assigned that seat, their card is registered for that seat. If they switch
Mhm.
seat, a random just can just, buy things off of your card, which is a threat for our business. Non-monetary risk, I think compliance is a big thing because we need to follow the rule for switching to credit card. And number two, we would have to rely a lot on the bank, even though we cut the time to process the money, but the bank kind of hold our money and then depend on them, do we get the money processed quickly enough to get deposit into our client bank account?
Okay, sounds good.
Mhm.
Any other considerations, risks you can imagine if you were to go
I
ahead with this change?
mhm. With this change, I think another risk is that kind of I think there's a segmentation in flights too, right? There's some route that is more popular with economy passenger, working class people, but there are some routes that is more high end. For example, from I don't know, New York City to Hawaii, people go because they have a lot of money. So we want to consider, do we want to implement this credit card payment on all of the flights or just a portion of them? Because we might lose more cash than we initially calculate $35
Hmm.
for some of the flight because it's just an average number.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect, Nobal. Thank you so much. This
Mhm.
was awesome. Great to hear your thoughts. If you were to summarize your recommendations to the CEO, how would you do so?
Do you know the name of the CEO, Tassif?
I do not.
Okay.
Let's call him Japheth today.
Japheth? Okay.
Yeah.
So Japhet, thank you so much for the project. We have been diving in and derived some great insights for you. So straight answer, yes, you should implement credit card on your flights because of two reasons. Reason number one, the cost that you were able to reduce is offset with the loss of revenue that you lose by switching to credit card, $35. Reason number two is that the complication of a credit card processing time and labor and steps is much more better to look at compared to a cash processing time and process. So I think you should do this. There is two major risks that I want to point out to you. Risk number one is the kind of cost customer experience, right? Is there any fraud that can associate with this? Is there any potential compliance regulation that we need to take into account? Can our passenger sue us for any reason because we switched to credit card? And risk number two is our dependency on the bank. Our money got deposited directly to the bank. We have to wait on them a lot to process our payment, get deposit into our bank account, just to make sure that we establish the partnership with the right bank, so that we have that seamlessly transfer. So next step, I think, like I just mentioned, number one, try to make sure that the customer is happy with it by maybe initiate a survey to see how they react to this new initiative. And number two, try to find a good partner bank, maybe the one that you have been working with or the bank that have a reputation for process credit card payment really quickly.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Wow. And
Thank
I'll
you.
even say that was legendary to go in the theme with everything that we've been saying this
Oh,
call.
really? Thank you.
No, I thought really, really, really well done. I thought very good performance. Let me maybe give you just some feedback from the top.
Hmm.
Overall, I feel this would definitely pass in the interview. To me, if I was the interviewer, I would certainly pass you on to the next round based on this performance.
Hmm.
That being said, there are some areas, right? We can fine tune, we can further sharpen. Let me start from the top. So
Yeah.
when I think about the case, obviously you have an opportunity up front on your clarifying questions, right?
Hmm.
To really take two or three questions max. And this is the area where you're trying to understand the business model, the setup, what is the minimum information you need to write the
Yeah.
framework. And I think you did a very good job asking questions about the
Hmm.
flight, getting really like which airline is this, right? Like I think the best, and I love that you did that, and that's so important. Really imagining a company in that time frame of the case, like which company is this related to? Is this Southwest? Is this
Hmm.
Emirates?
Yeah.
Right? Like that really helps you understand who is our client. So love that. Keep doing that. I think another question I may add my own would be, are we one of the last ones to have been considering this change, right? Versus have other ones also done this? Are we a fast follower or are we one of the laggards, if you will, in the industry?
Right.
I think that's also a good indicator as to where we are. In
Hmm.
terms of the framework, I thought your framework was quite good. You considered a lot of things. I may go one step further in customizing the framework even more to this case. So what I like to do in this is have a bucket on market. And typically frameworks follow a bit of a why, what, how logic, even though we never put down on a page why, what, how, right? But I think that
Yeah.
helps you flow through. And that's how all of us consultants think. So the why for me is really the market context as
Hmm.
to what's really going on in the market, right? Have
Yeah.
there been any broad regulatory changes that have maybe caused or changed recently? Are we one of the what's happening with our competitors? Are there other competitors that have also made this move and we're
Hmm.
one of the fast followers or not? What time period is this? Is this, I mean, we're talking cash card like this is clearly not 2025, right? So what time period is this? Is this during COVID? We're trying to avoid contact. Like, is that why we're, potentially considering this? That could be a good way to kind of bring in some of the external buckets, but you know that this is a quick check the box type thing for such a case where you really know that this is going to be much more about profitability, about revenue, about cost, something to do
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
That being said, when I think about customization for this case, I think about if I'm A plus airline, there's two options I have. One option is cash plus card, the other option is card
Mm.
only. For the two options, I want to consider financially and non-financially both of these options because I
Yeah.
think there's a number of things that were running through your mind, and I think you bucketed it in four areas, and I think those were good. But I think, again, further fine-tuning this and just optimizing a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Cash plus card, financial, non-financial. Financial, I'm thinking profitability. Profit is revenue minus cost. Revenue is price times volume. Well, the price isn't changing, obviously, of what we're offering in food and beverage, but the volume is. In cash and card, we're able to serve everyone. All methods of payment, essentially, quote unquote, are taken into account. Everyone is fed. From a non-financial perspective, I think it's a little annoying that, air hostesses have to deal in cash. It takes longer. It's clunky. You even mentioned cash operations, which is lovely. A lot of people miss that, don't think about that, but you did. So you could even bring that up in the framework itself. There's a whole component of operations for managing cash that you would imagine is quite bulky, right? Um, on the other side, card only, same financial, non-financial, profitability, revenue, price, volume, right? Keep going
Hmm.
down the same tree. Price isn't changing, but volume is less. Now you have
Yeah.
fewer customers that are, whatever, you lose the cash customers. Same goes on the cost side. Well, the cost here is going to be you have to worry about the cost of managing card, but you don't
Hmm.
have to worry about the cost of managing cash like you did on the other side of the framework. Non-financially, same thing goes here, where you talk about, well, everything is faster, you're able to serve customers through. However, you miss out on the customers that are essentially don't have credit card, and hence you probably have some pissed off customers. So based
Yeah.
on all this, hypothesis either upfront or at the end, either way, I'm okay with. You can basically have an hypothesis that maybe Gamma Airline made the switch because the cost of managing cash likely superseded the revenue lost by not accepting credit
Right.
card, right? So lovely framework, quite liked it. Further fine-tuning it, customizing it for the case. This
Hmm.
would be a slightly better one in my opinion.
Yeah.
I love the logic, the business flow, the pauses, and thinking about so what after each and every step. That is extremely, extremely good, and something that people just don't do, typically as well. But I thought you did that phenomenally throughout.
Thank you.
So upfront, I love that you basically try to dimensionalize the problem, right? You said, okay, well, how big of a deal is in-flight food and beverage purchases? Can you give me a sense for a typical flight? How many people in economy? How many in business class? How many are using cash? Exactly, nail on the head, right? Gave you the exhibit. I thought you read the exhibit beautifully, took 5 seconds. It's a complicated exhibit, so you take some time to just digest. Walk me through not numbers on the page, right? Which is oftentimes a temptation that let me just read the exhibit out loud. But no, you manage a very good balance of, okay, this is the information provided. I'm going to multiply this and this and this and this, step one, step two, step three. Lovely. I could follow you very clearly as to how you're going about the entire calculation. Also, I really, really liked once you got to the 525 and the 105 and 420 split, you thought about, well, what's happening with the 105? I don't think we're losing the 105. We're probably losing a part of it only. So that was automatic, right? Another
Hmm.
such reaction would be, wow, $105, that's a lot. So I'm thinking $105 times 4 flights a day times 360 days a year times, I don't know, fleet of 200 planes. That's a lot of
Hmm.
dollars. So this is the problem worth solving. So those types of aha moments and
Hmm.
reactions, absolutely important for building conversation and making sure the interviewer knows, like, okay, Bow's on it. He knows why we're here and what we're doing, and really following and ingrain yourself in the case.
Right.
So at that point, once you knew $35, immediately you link back to the original framework, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. And you said, okay, maybe this is a cost problem. Maybe there's an operations. I love the three reactions to the exhibit as well. Love the pause up front. That those are exactly the three insights I would say as well. Super
Hmm.
complex, right? The numbers even out. The 2% is a wash. So really, it's the seven people at the airport, and also the 31 days versus 1 day, time value of money. Perfect. Um, I think the only area that I've felt you could have had a better answer on is probably the risks and considerations.
Yeah.
So here, Bao, I think when you think about risks and additional considerations, you're hedging towards, well, maybe we should make this move, right? At this point in the case, then maybe we
Right.
should switch
Mm.
to credit card only. If that is the case, that would mean we need to get rid of the cash operations. That would mean we need to get rid of 7 people per airport. That means severance packages. That means layoffs. That means
Mm,
hurting our brand. That means in a unionized industry like this, that can be a little disruptive. So I
hmm
want to hear that risk as a next as an area of risk or concern. Second, I want to then hear, well, what can we do to minimize that risk? To minimize that risk, maybe we can
Right.
look at internal job postings. We can see if there's a skills match between these people that potentially being laid off to within our company the open job postings and see if there's a match. Maybe we can consider slowly piloting this. So I think you kind of got there with the New York to Hawaii point that, what about the bigger flights, longer? That's fair. Kind of hinting at the element of piloting, but basically that, right? Like maybe we can pilot it at some airports and slowly expand this further in terms of what we should do.
hmm
Overall, very good. Again, recommendation. You did a good job by saying CEO Japhet, this is a recommendation, and this is why we're saying so. And these are the risks and these are the next steps, which I think I would have modified slightly. But overall, very, very good. Just maintain enthusiasm throughout the case, right? And I think that's the only other thing I would say, like tone, modulating your tone, showing excitement to reactions to the numbers, like, wow, $100 a flight, that's actually a lot. Those types of things are also going to build more excitement and engagement throughout the
hmm
case. But I think overall exceptional.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you make a great point pointing that out that we can have like cash plus credit card option on a flight, and also the risk that I have not considered about the rotation. Also, like laying off people is very effective. Thank you so much.
No, of course. Happy to.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Wow, great job.
Thank you.
Round of applause. Love that. Love that. Okay, that was very interesting, and I love a good airlines case. So awesome. Well, hey, we've got 12 minutes left to the top of the hour, and so we're going to take some questions. And so the chat is open. So if you got a question, like whether it's about today's case specifically or kind of case interviews more broadly, if those are all fair game. If you get a question, just let me know if it's for Tausif or for Bao here. And so I'm gonna start with some pre-submitted questions that y'all sent in. So thank you for those, and then I'll go to the chat here in a few minutes once we've got some great questions in there. Okay, let's get started. Tausif, what are some specific aspects that BCG puts more focus on when it
Mm,
comes to cases and
mm.
behavioral interviews?
No, absolutely. I think one thing I'll say is the weightage on behavioral versus case is nearly 50-50.
Mm,
I think we put so much emphasis on casing, which absolutely that's the rate limiting step in terms of preparation for the interview. But behavioral questions and how you connect with the interviewer is just as important. Your stories and how you tell them just as important. So I would say one, let's make that clear up front as well. Like both are very, very important pieces of the interview. I think in terms of behavioral, what we're looking for is structure in your communication, in how composed you are, and kind of articulating, and making sure your stories are also rich enough. And when you're pushed to ask questions after questions, like once you tell your story, I'm going to ask you two or three questions following up to really make sure exactly, what your involvement was in that specific instance. I think sometimes interviewees tend to overstate some things or conflict some things. So I think this is our opportunity to go deeper and really make you think about, well, what you would have done things differently, or even sometimes putting you in the under the spotlight and say, okay, let's have that conversation firsthand. And then how would you describe that? Right? Like how did that go directly? Like if I'm your boss, how did you have that conversation? So I think that's one thing on behavioral. So just be prepared for that. And I think there's really preparing 8 to 10 stories, like reflect on your experiences, prepare 8 to 10 stories, have it bullets, whatever you want to call it, but really think about your experiences, put them down on paper, because during the time of the interview, you're going to be pulling them, in your mind and or on your page or whatever, right? Obviously, don't reference a document during the interview, but at least you have those experiences to reflect on. On casing, I think honestly, Bao did a phenomenal job today. So, like, huge shout out. But lots of good habits and practices demonstrated today in capturing the information clearly to framework being customized to the case is a big deal for BCG, Bain, to making sure that you have again, structure, taking time at the right points of the case as well. I really think of this as an NBA game, and in some ways where you have like a full timeout up front and then you have a 20-second timeouts essentially, where it's not 20 seconds, but it's really 4 or 5 seconds to quickly read the exhibit, right? Or you think about towards the end when you thought about the risks, but I think you did a very good job of like, you know what, let me pause, write some down. So I think knowing when to do that as opposed to doing it every single time, I think those kinds of things will matter quite a bit also.
Okay, love it. Thanks, Tauseef. Very comprehensive answer.
Absolutely.
Sticking to this kind of theme of about BCG specific, BCG interviews tend to be candidate led versus McKinsey more interviewer led, and a lot of other firms are a blend of those two. Uh, any tips to navigate specifically that candidate led part of it? Like maybe one or two tips for preparing effectively for BCG cases.
No, I think if you're coming in and preparing for all three firms, which most candidates are, I would encourage you to prepare for an interviewee-led approach because that just prepares you for basically everything. I think even an interviewer-led case, you are still expected to show us so what at the end of the answer, right? Like when Bao came up with the 105 to 420 split, so to speak, in cash versus card, he still reflected on, well, you're not losing the 105. Or, well, there's also the cash thing to consider, operations thing to consider. That's still expected, by the way, in an interviewer-led case. It's just that if you're not hitting the mark on it, that's okay. Like you shouldn't, like you're not going to be made to feel bad, or you're not going to be put in a corner and asked, what else, what else, what else, as much in a McKinsey type case as you would in BCG Bain. That's really the only difference. Otherwise, it's very similar preparation, and I would say prepare for interview-led.
Great. We've got a lot of folks here on the call and in our community that don't have a business background. And so we've had several questions coming in around like, how do I build my business knowledge or my business acumen, if I'm not in business school?
That's a really good question. So I think there's definitely, podcasts and things like that people listen to, Morning Brew or things like that seem to be good podcasts to consider. I would even encourage you to read McKinsey Insights and BCG Perspectives more on the regular. They publish really, really good things out there. So just be more in tune with the language that is being used in these publications, which tend to be across functions, across sectors. Not saying go and read everything, but I do think literally taking a publication in, throwing in Notebook LM, and listening to a podcast that is made by yourself on the way to work or lab or wherever you are, right? Is a great idea to just get used to the lingo, so to speak, for these firms. I think second, I again, increasingly everyone is doing well on casing, right? So the differentiation is going to become about who gets through cases fast enough and who makes things industry specific in the way we communicate. So when we're talking about the next level, which is where we need to be today, I think that industry knowledge you can further get through really, again, ChatGPT is your best friend here, but thinking about sector by sector, what are the core functions in medtech, in biopharma? How do they work? How does R&D commercial work at a very high level? Like you don't need to know too much about these things, but slowly ramping up and thinking about these study guides, if you will, for major sectors. And usually interviews are going to be around these 5 to 8 sectors, depending on which office you're applying for in the end. So I think with that mix of solutions, you should be well prepared.
Love that. Just to add two management consulted resources to that. Number one is the Market Outsiders podcast. So it's a twice a week kind of short format podcast, just breaking down like a piece of business news. So that's fun, quick. And then number two is we've got industry breakdowns. So if you're black belt or super prep or all access pass or a a student at a partner university, then just check out your account for those breakdowns as well.
Perfect.
Love it. For practicing cases, is it important to get exposure to all case types or all industries? For example, if I'm going into like a healthcare consulting, do I need to be familiar with like a tech case or a supply chain case, or how do you kind of approach that?
Right. So if you're preparing for a healthcare consulting interview, definitely interview is going to be in healthcare. But if you're preparing for MBB, really your interview can be anything and everything. That said, there are office specific nuances I mentioned. So if you're in Houston office, there's a good chance you're going to get an oil and gas case. If you're in New York, you could pretty much get anything and everything minus oil and gas. Right. So there's those considerations for you to consider. But I would be prepared for various industries. And I think your question of what would you rather have checked off the boxes in terms of your prep? It's hard to say for MBB. I personally, the way I would mentor my students and mentees is to literally give them a mix of both. So every single case we do would be either a different industry slash mix of market entry, market sizing, profitability, growth strategy, M&A, right? Like I'm hitting on all those boxes. Those are most important to me in terms of the functions. So you have the capabilities of each case, but then industry, there's similarities here and there. Like FI and insurance have similarities, medtech and biotech and biopharma have some similarities. So there's those aspects that you can more or less carry over. But I would say functions first, industry second. Ideally, you do both.
Do both. Love it.
Yep.
All right, here's a fun question. Where is it? Why do you think you got picked out of 1,000 other applicants for BCG?
So that's a black box question. I don't know why. Maybe it was a mistake. Why did I get picked? It's a good question. I really think this is where the behavioral part and experiences come in. I think there's lots of very good casers. I definitely there were lots of cases that were better than me, even at the time of interview. But I think the stories that I had maybe were richer. The connection I had with the interviewer maybe was slightly better. There's those aspects that we can certainly practice to a certain level. But after a certain point, it's really just luck on that day. So I mean, there's no magic formula as much as I would like there to be. But we can get you to the 90, 93, 95%. Rest of it is luck, to truth be told. But I think getting to the 90, 95 is absolutely important on our end because that is controllable. So making sure that the casing is really, really strong. Absolutely. That's table stakes. Behavior, making sure your stories are being told in a very lovely way. You know when to emphasize on what you are able to answer the follow-ups really, really well, and in a concise way, in a structured way. Those are the things that we can best do.
Control what you can control. Love it. Cool. Some good advice there. Okay. Well, hey, we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to let everybody go about your day. Tauseef, thank you for this excellent demonstration here, and we'll make sure to share links to your calendar and all those good things, and give folks an opportunity to schedule with you. Thank you so much, Bao, crushing it.
Okay.
Bravo for doing this in front of a couple
Thank
hundred
you.
people here. Killed it.
Thank you, Tauseef, for walking
Thank
me
you.
through.
No, of course,
Hey,
Bao.
Fed,
Thank you.
Katie.
Thanks, Shafid. Thanks for having me.
Love it. Okay. Well, I'll see some of you tomorrow on our education consulting panel. So that's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Check out our website to register if you're not already registered for that. And we'll send out the recording of this case here to you shortly. Thank you so much for trusting Management Consulted with your prep, and we look forward to seeing you on another call soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you.